I'm Kristen McGlory. Welcome to my new home kitchen, which is still a work in progress. This week's Genius recipe is for an incredibly simple, make-ahead friendly holiday side dish. It happens to be a little bit rich and creamy, very bright and fresh, and it completely debunked one of the rules that I thought I knew about cooking. So this recipe comes from the legendary chef and cookbook author Marisol Presilla and her opus Gran Cocina Latina, and we will get to talk to her in a little bit, but for now we're just prepping some green beans. When I have the time for just a little bit more prep, this is kind of like a meditative thing to line them all up like this. Also, if you have other ways that you like to prep green beans, I would love to hear. Our producer Grant suggested scissors. I could try that. I've never tried it. Grant, should I do it?
Yeah, do it.
Okay. Hey, that's really good. Boom. I like both ways, but the scissors worked very impressively well. Thanks, Grant. So the next step for these green beans is to blanch them, which actually really surprised Marisol as she was researching the recipes for this cookbook. Here she is to tell us more of the story on that.
I first tasted this dish in Colombia, in Remolinos in Barranquilla, and then I made it with the daughters of this particular cook and with this cook who came to visit when she was in her 80s in my own kitchen, basically impressed by her very skilled way with string beans. And she was doing what the chefs do, which is blanch the trim beans and then shock them in cold water to stop the cooking. Therefore, you keep the beautiful crunchy texture and also the bright green color. And normally, Latin American cooks don't do that. They tend to overcook the string beans. They get the color of green fatigues, which is not very appealing.
Okay, we have everything we need for blanching. Boiling water, we have salt to help season the green beans all the way through. We have an ice bath ready to shock them when we're done boiling them, and we can just dump them in. It's boiling. Okay, so Marisol says we're going to cook these for about 2 to 3 minutes. It would be a great time for you to go hit like and subscribe if you want all of the Genius recipes. Just a thought that came to me spontaneously. So really we want this to be at a pretty raging boil. If your pot has cooled down a little bit more than you want and the bubbles are kind of starting to dissipate, throw the lid back on, it'll perk back up. Also, as Marisol pointed out, if you are doing this for a big crowd, do it in batches. Another good reason to do all of that the day before if you are like doubling, tripling this recipe. This is a good time to actually like check a bean. Okay, that's nice. Look, I can get my fork through, but they're not soft and squishy. So this is perfectly illustrating what blanching does for vegetables. It cooks them quickly, it sets their really bright green color, and then you throw them into ice water to stop that cooking so that they stay crisp tender. If you're trying to really preserve like exactly the texture you want, exactly the color you want, an ice bath is worth it. If you can, leaving your green beans or whatever vegetable in the strainer while you plunge it in the ice bath is helpful so that you're not fishing out ice cubes later. But when you're doing a batch this small and your ice cubes are relatively easy to fish out, it's fine. It's really fine. Also, like all my green beans would not have fit in there. Once these are nice and cool, scoop them out and let them dry off a little bit. This is exactly what I would do if I was making these ahead. Dry them off on a towel, and then once they're nice and dry, pack them up in whatever reusable container you would use. Stick them in the fridge until the big day. Swaddling. One of the things that I really love about this recipe is that you can do all of this the day before so that on the big day, you are not taking up oven space and you're only using one skillet. Here is Marisol to tell us more about how she would make this ahead for a big feast.
I found this recipe early on when I was doing research in Colombia. So it was among the first recipes that I included. The beauty of this dish is that you can trim the green beans and you can blanch them, chock them, keep them in the refrigerator until you're ready to cook. And then once, that step is done, it will take you less than 5 minutes to put this dish together. So you can do this right before serving.
So one of the other things that I really love about this recipe is that Maricela develops so much deep savory flavor so quickly with very few ingredients, and that is in part thanks to the fact that she's using 3 different types of scallions, which are basically just members of the onion garlic family. So she's got onion, garlic, and scallions. As I was talking with Maricel, she was explaining how this is just one example of the many sofritos that are used in Latin American cooking. So here she is to explain more about that.
Well, sofrito is the DNA of Latin cooking. In this particular recipe, you have 2 types of onion. You have onion, the white onion, which is very typical of Colombian cooking, and also you have the scallions. You want to have mostly the white part, maybe with a little bit of the green if you want to, but everything is mellowed by the milk.
I'm trying to chop my onions finally. Lost a few. No. I have my finely chopped scallions. I have my finely chopped onion. I want those to be about the same size because they're gonna go in at the same time, and I don't want my scallions to burn before my onion is cooked through. Also a good reason to keep it on like a slightly lower heat. And then just wanted to point out, Maricel calls for a small onion that is about 5 ounces. Mine was 10 ounces, so this is gonna hang out for something else. And now I just have my garlic left. So with the garlic, Maricel asks us to use a mortar and pestle. That happens to be the one thing that I can't find in our move. I have a molcajete that would have been perfect for it. But here's what you can do if you don't have a mortar and pestle, or you can't find yours because you just moved, like me. You can just do it on a board, mince garlic like you normally would, and mash it up with some salt. I'll show you how. So start by smashing them to get their skins loose, and also get them started on their way to minced and mashed. You can trim out the little dry nub if you can find them. So if you had a mortar and pestle, you could just throw those in and start bashing them with salt, and they would break down into a paste. Because I can't find mine, I'm gonna have to sort of start them on their way with the knife, just starting to chop them up. And then once I add this salt, it's gonna help draw out their moisture and break them down much faster. So a whole other teaspoon of salt goes in here. Pretty nice and pasty. I think you could make all of this ahead too if you wanted. Just pack them all up in little containers, and that way when you go to cook on the big day, you can just throw them in the pan. So our sofrito is all ready. We just need to go cook it. So this is it. This is the only part that you have to do last minute. This is the moment that you are telling everybody to go to the table. Someone's over there carving the turkey. Now's the time to saute your sofrito and make your delicious green beans. So basically we're just looking for these to be soft, and then we're adding in the garlic. And I would say hot enough to sizzle, medium-ish heat is great. Not higher, because you got a lot going on. You don't want to burn this. However, I will tell you from experience that even if you do burn it, it will still be delicious. How do I know? Because I burned it. So this is just happening for about 2 minutes, but I mainly go by smell. Once it's not smelling raw and sharp anymore, and it's sweetened and it's smelling like toastier garlic, it's time to add the green beans. Smell is gone. It just smells sweet and delicious and mellow. Green beans are going in, and this is the ingredient that completely shocked me when I first saw it in Maricel's recipe. Just milk.
Whole milk, 2%.
This is whole milk. This milk is going to make it so silky and a little bit rich while still keeping it really fresh and bright. And I had always been so afraid of things like milk breaking in sauces, but Marisol told me that I really don't need to worry about that at all. So this is already a vegetarian side dish, but it could easily be made vegan and dairy-free too. Marisol had some ideas for that as well.
Imagine also that these string beans, you can turn into a vegan. So far, it's a vegetarian side, but you can take it to that level. Coconut milk, it would be delicious.
Like, this is amazing. I'm boiling milk and it's not breaking. And even if it does break, it's really not a big deal. It's going to be delicious. Great host over here. Very experienced. Wow, okay. Look at that cream sauce. That is just so lovely. It is just rich and creamy enough to satisfy the people who love a nice, like, hefty, rich, creamy side dish like a green bean casserole, but it's also light and fresh for the folks who would like that on Thanksgiving. It's also just a great anytime side dish when you want green beans that just taste really special. I also hope that you will go listen to the Genius Recipe Tapes podcast episode this week, because Marisol tells us so much more of the story behind finding this recipe, and she tells the most heartwarming Thanksgiving story I have ever heard. Please go listen to it anywhere you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving. We will see you in 2 weeks.